You're listening to the Chopped Podcast, episode number 21. Well, la-dee-da. Hey everyone, I'm Marley of the blog Namely Marley. Thanks for joining me today for the 21st episode of the Chopped Podcast. This is the podcast designed for people just like you, bloggers who love food. Each week I'm sharing thoughts, stories, interviews, everything related to food blogging so that we can all learn together about what works with food blogging and maybe even a little bit about what doesn't. Today's guest is Alex P. Gates of the site alexpgates.com. Alex and I are talking about something that I know that we all have a lot of interest in, and that's email marketing. We know that the sharing algorithms for social media platforms like Facebook and Pinterest and now possibly even Instagram, these algorithms can change. And we have no control over that. So you may be getting tons of traffic on Pinterest today, and a tweak on their end to their sharing algorithm can change that overnight. It's not a happy realization, and we've all been through it at one time or another. We know social media is a big part of our lives, of course, but why not cultivate another way to share your content with your audience? Creating, growing, and consistently reaching out to your audience via email can be a powerful tool for food bloggers. Think about it. It's a really targeted audience because these are people who signed up. They took the step and they signed up for your newsletter. They want to hear from you. So if you're like me and you ever wondered, what is the best way to grow that email list and what is the best way to, cultivate and reach out to that email list, finding ways to do that is really helpful. And that's why I reached out to Alex, because he has a lot of experience with email marketing. So if you're thinking about adding more oomph to your email marketing campaign, today's podcast episode is just for you. Before we move on to that interview, I want to tell you about Chopped Conference. It's October 15th and the 16th, so mark your calendars and join me and about 100 of my favorite food blogging friends. And let's get together and we'll talk about food blogging in person. We'll learn lots of great stuff, network, of course, eat, party a little while we're at it too. So go to choppedcon.com to register today. I hope to see you there. Let's go straight to that interview with Alex. Today's intro shout out is to Lauren Keating of the site Healthy Delish. Lauren sent me a shout out on Twitter that she was listening to the Chopped Podcast while on a train in Sweden. Lauren, do you need anyone to carry your bags for you? Call me. So what are you doing while listening to the Chopped Podcast? Send me a shout out on Twitter or Instagram using #ChoppedCon, and maybe I'll feature you and your site in an upcoming episode. But for today, in honor of Lauren, everybody pack up your bags, get out your binoculars, so you can see all the beautiful sights, and put on those noise-reducing headphones, and let's talk about all things food blogging and so much more. Hey everyone, I'm happy to have Alex P. Gates of PackDog.com on the show today. Alex, welcome to the Chopped Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Marley.
Thanks, Alex. I'm really looking forward to talking with you today because we're talking about a topic, email marketing, that is really intriguing to me. So I'm really ready to learn more from you. But before we get into all that, can you just give a little bit of background about what's led you to the point where you're at today?
Sure. I run the email empire at PackDog.com, and so Pack is a social network for people who like dogs, and so they create a profile for their dog and add posts for their dog, and they interact with people on the site, really based around the types of breed that they have or the city that they live in. And so what we're doing at Pack with a lot of emails is we're surfacing some of the really great content that's added to Pack every week, and we're delivering these out. And we're delivering them based on breed affinity. So if you have a pug and a Labrador Retriever, for example, you're going to get an email that has the best post from the pug pack or the Labrador Retriever pack each week.
Do you have a Westie pack?
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
That's mine. I have a Westie.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So in addition to that, we also have a group of what we call pack leaders. So we have about 60 volunteers who are every week, they're putting together a newsletter that is specific for a breed. So we have a pug pack leader, a Chihuahua pack leader, so on. And what they do is they find really great things around the web each week, whether it would be cute t-shirts or note cards or really anything that would be breed specific for the breed that they love. And they kind of combine that with some of the best content on Pack, and we're sending these weekly emails out to all of our users. So I'm kind of managing that whole thing with them, giving them the tools that they need in order to submit these links and create the newsletters. And then we have editors, of course, that look at everything, but we handle all of the technical side of delivery and all of that. But so we're sending a lot of segmented or very specific emails out. And we're doing it at pretty high volumes too. So that's where I am right now. And prior to that, I was doing a lot of web development with a company with a couple of partners. We would do web design and development in Omaha, Nebraska. And for the last 2 years, though, we've been working on the Pack project and having a lot of fun with that.
It sounds great. And so let's be clear here. You don't actually have a food blog, but I know that you have a particular affection for food blogs because your wife has one, right?
Yeah, that's right. So my wife, Jamie, blogs at jamies-recipes.com. But we're working on a redesign and a rebranding. So look for the Kitchenarium to launch in about 2 to 3 weeks. We're looking forward to that.
So you're changing the name too?
Yes.
Kitchenarium. I love that.
Yep. It'll be thekitchenarium.com. Coming soon.
Great. And you guys were at Chopped Conference last year, right?
That's right. We were.
Yeah. It was great meeting you. Okay. So, I think that gives you a really unique perspective on food blogging because you're seeing it from the position of a partner or of someone that's doing that. And it sounds like you're doing the background stuff on her food blog as well.
Yes, she's really taken the bull by the horns and done a lot of that on her own, and I'm really proud of her for that. Obviously having a web developer husband can be a real asset if you're a food blogger.
I have that, so I'm lucky.
That's great. Yeah, and I feel so the Kitchenarium has been a long process, but we're trudging through. I mean So my point is that the web developer husband is going to be stepping up a lot more, like he should be, in the coming months to help her out with that for sure.
But the thing is, you get the hard work that goes in behind it, and you understand, the kind of challenges that food bloggers are facing.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent. So one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show today was to talk about email marketing. I know it's something obviously that you have some professional experience in, and I also know it's something that food bloggers are, it's a challenge for a lot of food bloggers. And I'll put my name in the hat on that one because I find it to be, one of the most difficult things because I have this email list and I don't always know what to do with them. So let's start with just kind of a basic question, and that is, should food bloggers have an email list on their blog?
Yes, definitely. So that's the short answer. But really, I think what you need to do is be clear with your readers why you're gathering their email address and what kind of content you're going to be sending them. Mm-hmm. And I know that that's sort of a challenge. I know some people will say, just start collecting email addresses right now, and build up your list. And that's a good idea. But, the point is to make sure that your readers are aware of what they're signing up for, right. So that when they start receiving those emails, they kind of know what to expect.
I see what you're saying. Like, I can give an example from, one of the blogs that I really like is called Cooking Stoned. And he actually says on there, sign up for my newsletter and receive unique recipes just for my email readers. And I like that. It seems like it's probably a unique value for that reader. And then he probably he knows what to deliver by the email.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, making sure that they have the right expectations is always key. That way, somebody's email inbox is a really sacred place, and you want to be invited back to that email inbox week after week after week. So as long as you're being consistent and you're delivering the type of content that you say you're going to deliver, they're going to welcome you back. But it's one of those deals where once you kind of make a mistake in that relationship, it's going to be really hard to get back into that inbox.
Oh my gosh, that puts a little bit of pressure on it. So you want to you want to make sure that you know exactly why you're asking for someone to sign up for your newsletter, and you want to be clear that they know why they're signing up, so that way you're not going to get a lot of unsubscribes and things like that.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so I want to get into that a little bit more in a second, but let's start a little bit with ideas on how people can grow their email list. I mean, that sounds like tip number one, which is be very specific about what your email newsletter list is about. But too, are there things that people can do to grow their email list? Like I've seen a lot of people who do something like a PDF giveaway or things like that.
Yeah, definitely. So I think the number one rule, and I'll probably be repeating it over and over and over, is content is king, and making sure that what you're putting out there is great is going to help you grow your newsletter the way it should be, and that's really organically.
Right.
A lot of folks are doing things, where maybe the first time you visit their website, you'll see it'll sort of have a little pop up there, a little modal in the window that'll try to get you to go ahead and sign up for for your newsletter right away. I find that to be sort of distracting for a couple of reasons. I mean, first of all, you have a visitor that's really may have never been to your site before, and all of a sudden you're asking for access to their email inbox, and they wonder, well, I don't even know what's on this website. Why would I want to let you into my email inbox?
Yeah.
And then for people that are coming back to the site, I know that with cookies and different things like that, you can try to prevent showing that same sign up to people, but inevitably you're going to be showing that same sort of weird dialogue to people that are already on your list.
Yeah.
And so I really caution against putting one of those really, blocking type signups right away on there. But what a lot of people do, and I think it makes a lot of sense, is they make sure that they have their email sign up, in a nice side column, or maybe the footer. But I think, in the side column where you have your photo and your bio and, things like that, where sign up for your newsletter there, I think that's really effective, and making sure that you have that on every single page or every single post, as opposed to maybe just having it on your homepage or something like that. I mean, making sure that when someone follows a link deep to your website and they see a recipe and they love what they're reading there and they want to get more, that option is right there, on the side for them to sign up.
What about those pop-ups that come, as a person is leaving the site, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I've seen those, and I've seen some that, sort of wait for you to scroll down the page a little bit. And, those are probably, I guess they're better than the one that's immediately there.
Yeah.
That said, I haven't done any real statistical testing or anything with that before, but just from my experience as, sort of a web strategy guy, I kind of cringe when I see those come up right away, because you're making a big ask. You're saying, hey, let me in your email inbox right away. And it's like, well, wait a minute. We, buy me dinner first or something. We just met.
Yeah. What about the ones, though, that offer something like, a good example probably for food bloggers would be, I've got the best recipes of 2014 that I want to share with you if you sign up for my newsletter list.
Yeah, I love that. Offering exclusive content like that is a really good thing. And then saying that you're going to do maybe a roundup of your top posts or something like that is also a really great thing too. People have a fear of maybe missing some of your content or missing some of the things that you post. And so offering that as a roundup is good. But I really love the idea of offering exclusive content in there. I've also seen some people do some great things with some giveaways where they say, well, you sign up for our email list and you have another entry in this giveaway or something like that. And some of that stuff is great too. I mean, as long as you're being truthful and consistent with the emails that you send, I think, attaching some of those giveaways is a really smart way to do it.
Excellent. And it seems like it would be something that wouldn't take, you're saying exclusive information for those readers, but it doesn't have to be unique. It can be something that you've cultivated from a previous post, so it shouldn't be a whole lot of work.
Oh, absolutely. Or you could even do something where perhaps you're giving them early access to something as well. So maybe you've written a post or you've written some stuff and you want to give it to them in an email a week ahead of time before the rest of your readers or something like that. I think that's a good way of using your content and not doubling your workload. So giving them something exclusive or having them feel special is a really good thing.
That's great. And can I ask a question about the logistics of that? Is that something that, how would somebody go about doing that so that when somebody signs up, then they get, is that software that helps you do that?
In terms of being on the email list? Or?
From the perspective of the blogger, let's say I created the best recipes of 2014 from my site, and I want to, anybody who signs up then gets access to that book. Is there software that helps make that connection happen? Or is that something you do through, I have, what do I have? MailChimp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that there are probably some WordPress plugins or some other third-party software that will help with that. But a lot of times that stuff can get a little complicated and you might need some technical chops to be able to, make that work the right way.
Okay.
In that case, what I would say is, it's easy with MailChimp or any of these other services to see where you have new subscribers come in.
Right.
And then maybe just make a note on your calendar once a day or once a week or something like
see.
that. Round up the new ones and make sure that, that you're just grabbing the new ones, and then send them the link to download that PDF or something like that.
Okay, that's a great way of doing it too then. Okay. There's nothing wrong. In fact, if anything, that kind of keeps you in touch with the people who are signing up, and they get this email from you, which is really nice.
Yeah, and that's a great time to be really personal with it as well. And you can say, hey, welcome. We're just entering spring, and we're going to have some new spring recipes coming up, or summer barbecue tips or something like that. So it's a great way to stay relevant and personable. It's a lot better to get an email from a person than a robot in that way. And so that could be an opportunity for you to really kind of have a personal touch, in a larger scale that way.
Yeah, in fact, I can recall one time I signed up for someone's free product or whatever, and I got an introductory email, and then that person actually, I'm sure they had a virtual assistant or somebody that sent me an email, but it was from their email address and saying, I'm really glad that you signed up. Can you tell me the number one reason that caused you to sign up for my newsletter? I want to make sure I serve you best. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that personal touch really, really helps. And it's easy to do things using email and some of these systems where it's not like you're actually having to either use a virtual assistant or type out an email, but you can be personable, and you can write some content every once in a while and update that really has a good personal feel. And I think that's definitely a good approach.
Oh, that's great. So are there any other things that can help grow your email list? I think I heard you say giveaways, and we talked about, as far as if I'm having a giveaway on my site, and one of the entries into that giveaway is to sign up for my newsletter. Another one would be, we talked about, having something like an exclusive content that somebody can have access to. I think Facebook allows you to have it as a call for action, as signing up for your newsletter.
Yep, you could put that at the top of your Facebook page, of course. But one thing that I found is that if you want people to share, or you want that to actually happen, you kind of have to just be forthright and ask people, hey, send this to 2 of your friends, or send this to 5 of your friends who would love these types of recipes. And so, so combine really great content with a very specific, request, and just say, hey, share this with somebody, and make them smile, and, support our blog and things like that. So don't be afraid to specifically ask people to either forward an email or share it on Facebook or Twitter. A lot of times people forget that, or they think, well, it's just so good, they'll share it anyway. But it's not bad to have a gentle reminder that says, hey, very specifically, please share this with some friends, and I think that's a good approach as well.
Alex, that's such a great tip, because I think that's one of the things I struggle with the most, and I imagine others out there do as well. And that is just that call for action, having it be something like that, please share this recipe, or please like this, subscribe to this podcast, that kind of thing. It's not easy to do.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I love that. Thanks a lot. That's a really good tip. So should we have separate newsletter lists? That's a question that I have, because, sometimes there may be dual purposes for our blogs. And so I can see a situation where somebody might sign up because they want to follow along with our most recent recipes. But if we have other posts that are kind of unrelated, should we have separate lists on our, manage separate lists as far as part of our newsletter?
Mm-hmm. And that's a great question. And I think a lot of it, of course, really has to do with the content and what your audience expects. I know that a lot of folks in the food blogging world have started out as food bloggers, and they, sort of achieved some success, and then they start to really get into maybe the science of blogging, or blogging about blogging and things like that. And so I can see, where you're having some overlap, but there's definitely some areas where there's not overlap. And so I think the idea is to maybe look at the amount, your number of readers, and see if, if having a separate list, how many would be on that list versus the other one, and really seeing if, at the time, if your audience is was collected at the time when you were kind of having that blend of content, or if this is something new. I wish I had a real clear-cut answer, but the one thing to keep in mind is that it's really possible to sometimes over-engineer some of these email lists where you get a little complicated and unnecessarily complicated where it gets a little confusing.
Yeah.
So let me give you one example. I work for a social dog website, and we send a lot of different emails. And sometimes we have people unsubscribe from one particular type of email, and then they get another type of email, and they say, "Hey, wait a minute! I thought I already unsubscribed from this." And so there's a challenge there where it's like you want to make sure that people, they know what they're subscribing to, and they know what they're unsubscribing to as well. And so when you segment things out, or when you're splitting lists too much, it is possible that you could run into a situation where someone says, "Hey, I don't want your emails anymore," but then they're getting these other emails, and then they're wondering why, and instead of unsubscribing, they're marking you as spam or something like that, which is a whole other ballgame.
Yeah.
So I guess the long and short of it is, I would say, if you're just starting out, I wouldn't worry too much about segmenting things at the beginning. I mean, I would worry more about just growing your list and putting out good quality content and being consistent with the emails that you send. And then, as you grow, maybe think more about it. Now, that said, there's a lot of really great segmentation tools that are built into MailChimp and these other ones that kind of allow you to send, different content based on, the segments that you would put a reader. But again, like I said, it is possible to really kind of get a little bit crazy with that and over-engineer that a little too much. So I would just try to, and I know that your readers are some of them are just starting out, and some of them have thousands and thousands and thousands of people on their list. So it really, the answer really is different based on your certain situation. But really look at do the work of looking at your readers, looking at your audience, knowing what they're anticipating, and then make that call based on that.
I see. So it kind of goes back to the original point that you had, and that is if your newsletter has a purpose to it, kind of stick to that purpose. And if you start to grow, if your blog starts to grow an additional segment, that may be something you need to think about later, but stick to the purpose that you have with your newsletter. Yes,
absolutely. And it's not even out of the question to say if you're going to start putting out different kind of content in an email, maybe you send that an email to your list and say, "Hey, guess what? We have a new one. Yeah. If you're interested, sign up." And so that's a good way to kind of keep them separated as well.
And that'll give you an idea of a reaction to it as well. That's good.
Totally. Yep.
Excellent. So these are the kind of tips about growing your list. So let's talk a little bit now about, you've got your list in place, and now you got to do something with that list.
Sure.
That's the hard part, I think. And so what are some services that you recommend that help people deliver that newsletter? I know that there's like Mad Mimi and Constant Contact and MailChimp, those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I used Constant Contact years and years ago, and we used to use that a lot when we were doing web design and development work for clients. More and lately, I've been using MailChimp for. I'm the president of our school PTA, and so we use that. Yeah. And MailChimp is great because they have. I think you can have 2,000 subscribers on a list and send up to 12,000 emails per month for absolutely free. And then from there, as your list grows, you can start paying. But I mean, it's a really great way to sort of get into it. But definitely know that, whatever service that you're going to be using to deliver is the same service that you want to use to collect your email addresses as well. So if you haven't set that up yet, definitely look into that. And I know that, MailChimp might have some official WordPress plugins. And if not, I know I was just doing some reading. There's definitely some unofficial ones that hook into their API. So that really makes it easy to put the sign up right on your site and have it go right into MailChimp. So you're going to want to make sure that you're using that service to collect them before you deliver them.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so it sounds like there's different, criteria for why you would choose one over the other. And so basically you just have to kind of spend some time researching that. And there's a lot of great reviews from other food bloggers out there too, which ones they preferred. And I happen to use MailChimp. One thing I really like is it's very user friendly. I mean, they have videos, instructions on everything, how to do basically everything.
Yeah, I'm out of all of them, MailChimp is definitely my favorite, and not only from the from the ease of use, but there's just so many really great user experience things in there. One particular thing is, I know as you're getting ready to send an email, if it shows the chimp's hand getting, his finger over the button, you know, and so if you move your mouse and hover it over the button, you can see sweat coming off of his hand. Like,
I didn't know that.
So many built-in, really cute things like that. But that said, from the technical standpoint, they have a really great developers API that allows, if you've got some web developer chops, you can go in and you can really build a lot of interesting things right through their API. So you can interact with your lists programmatically instead of going in. So they have a lot of great tools that way. They also have some really great RSS integration. And so this is great for, obviously bloggers are going to have RSS feeds for their blogs.
Right.
It makes it easy to pull in content from your blog when you integrate an RSS feed. And so I definitely recommend MailChimp. But that said, I think any of these reputable services, just do a little reading on it and check out some of the reviews. But beyond just the user experience and the and sort of the extra features that they offer, they also have really great sending reputations as a whole. So understand that when you send email from a service, that it has to go through their service more or less, and so they have deliverability ratings and different things like that. And so these services have a vested interest in making sure that your emails are delivered and opened and read. And so they put a lot of engineers at this, making sure that, from the technical standpoint, they're really structurally sound. And I know that MailChimp does a lot of work with that. And so I have a lot of trust and faith in them when I'm delivering something either to my PTA list or otherwise. MailChimp has been really great.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad to know that.
Yeah, and so, and I think for a small to medium-sized list, any of these are probably going to work out really well. But when things start to get pretty expensive, oftentimes you're thinking, oh, wow, now I've got a lot of subscribers on my list, and it's costing me a lot of money a month. Can I justify this cost, or should I look at some other options? And that's something that we've done at Pack. And so what we're using at Pack is an application called Sendy. And this is something that you would actually self-host, much like you would self-host your blog. Mm-hmm. And this hooks into a service from Amazon. So Amazon is doing a lot of things, of course, with web tech. But one of them is called the Simple Email Service. So it's Amazon SES. And I think it's for every 1,000 emails you send, it's a dime or something like that. So you can really have massive volume with something like that, but there's a lot more technical things that are involved with that. And so those are options that are available, I think, as if your list is grown to a phenomenal amount and you're sort of left thinking, wow, I don't want to spend $500, $600, $700, $800 a month to do this. What are some other options? There are other options. And so I would definitely look into Amazon SES, as an option as your list grows to those, to those larger amounts.
Excellent. That's a great tip. I love that. It's always good to save money.
Yeah, definitely. And, it can sneak up on you too. You start with a free plan and it's free and it's going, and then all of a sudden, it's a double-edged sword. You have a lot of readers and you have a lot of stuff coming up, and it's like, wait a minute now, this is going to be costing me, definitely more money. And you need to think about, how can I regain some of those costs, or what can I do to sort of lower those costs? So definitely something to keep in mind as you grow that list, that there are other options. Now, you do miss out on a lot of the great built-in features of MailChimp, but I think at that point, really, it's good to bring on a web dev and take a look at some of the other options.
I see. So there might be a little bit of an upfront cost there, but once you kind of get that going, it should be it's a cost savings to you overall.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so let's talk about how a food blogger, I guess if you could just say a food blogger, there's so many different kinds of food bloggers, but how should we be interacting with our newsletter list? I've seen some that send out a full or partial post with every single post that they publish on their site. Do you think that, or there's others that do actually just a newsletter that's written from the perspective of the food blogger and things like that? Do you see any value in one versus the other?
Yes, definitely. So I think one of the biggest goals that you have in sending email is that you want to re-engage your readers and bring them back to your site. And so when you're putting the entire content, your entire post from something that you've just put on your blog, and you put that in an email, it really doesn't leave a lot of reason for that reader to actually click and then come back to your website, which ultimately you want them to do so they can explore other things and so on and so forth. So,
Right.
but that said, it really depends on the volume that you're posting. Now, maybe you're you're publishing a new post every week or every 2 weeks, or in my case, every 2 months. But and that at that point, it's kind of nice to to be able to give that content out to them and make sure that the readers are seeing it. But if you're posting more frequently, which I think a lot of people are, and you're doing a variety of different kinds of recipes, I like the approach of having sort of a roundup. And you could say, oh, yeah, this is a roundup of the best posts this week, or a roundup of all the posts this week, or whatever the case may be. Make sure you're specific and you're telling them what it is, and then just follow through that way. So I do like the idea of having little thumbnails in there with the photos and making it nice, and having the title of the recipe. And you can either bring in your excerpt that would come through your RSS feed, or you can write your own. But showing them and giving them a variety of different things in an email. Ultimately, your goal is to, after they've opened the email, step one is getting them to open the email. Step two, after they've opened that email, getting them to click on something to come back to your website. And so I would definitely put a variety of content in there, and I wouldn't, if you put too much text or too much content in there, it gets to be a little overwhelming, and you would see that and think, oh, there's a lot going on here. Maybe I don't have time for this right now. So make sure it's in digestible chunks, and it's appealing with great images and things like that. Just the idea, of course, is just to get them to click and then come back to your website.
I see. So including a photo or two is not a bad idea in your newsletter.
No, I think it's a great idea. Now, of course, people are reading email on mobile devices more so than on desktop, PCs, and so you do have to be conscious, just like we do, on our blogs, right? We need to be worried about, how big are these images? For somebody that's just using their mobile phone on their data connection, will it download in time? Are we being responsible with the amount of data that we're asking them to download, so on and so forth? And we have to play those same, by those same rules in email as well. And so I would definitely include images, but make sure you're not putting massive images in there. And I know there's a balance, because we have great photos, and our mobile phones and our tablets have these retina screens, and so it needs to have good resolution. And I think as a whole, we on the web are kind of figuring that out right now. But I mean, there's definitely a balance between having great resolution and having things that are just massively too big. And because you don't want things to be slow, you don't want them to be too heavy with data, and so on and so forth. But definitely put photos in there, because people see photos, and that kind of gives them the reason. Just like the same rules apply, right? I mean, if you're posting on Facebook, obviously you're not posting on Pinterest without a photo. Things like that, right. That's really going to be what catches their eye and wants them to click.
I mean, you could tell me all day about that banana pie, but until you show me a picture of it, that's probably what's going to inspire me to
definitely
want to try to make it. So good. Okay. So it sounds like photos, and it sounds like I guess you could each blogger could consider for themselves. So for example, I can give an example here. There's a blog that I was following their newsletter for a while, and they published 3 times a week, and every single time they were sending the full feed of their posts with all the photos and everything. And I don't know, it just seemed overwhelming after a while. And I can see that's kind of an example where, maybe a weekly review would be better than simply just, the whole text of and photos from the post.
Mm-hmm. And you'll find too that readers, as long as you're consistent, and I know it's difficult, but readers are going to expect, and they're going to look forward to an email at a certain time, each week, if that's the routine you go in. Yeah. And so, it's good to develop that routine and get them excited and knowing that an email is coming and excited to see it. So definitely, I would for sure, if you're posting more than a couple times a week, I don't know. I mean, I would be a little reluctant to send the full copy in an email each time you post. Not only is it expensive on your end to send them all the time, but it's also maybe you're not being a good steward for their inbox that way.
Exactly. Okay, that's good feedback. And I think in some ways, Alex, do you think people could be looking at email marketing as just another form of social media in some ways. So I know that we spend a lot of time on social media sharing our content. So this is really, in other words, what I think I'm hearing you say, and or maybe what I'm translating is, if we got our readers into the habit of every Tuesday, I'm going to send out an email that basically talks about the things that happened on the blog over the week. Instead of looking at that as another hassle or another pain that I've got to go through, I could look at it as this is just another form of sharing my content.
Definitely. Social networks sort of wax and wane in popularity.
Yeah.
But email is such old technology, but it's there. I saw a statistic just yesterday that said just over 50% of women aged 17 to 24, the first thing they check on their smartphone is their email. And in fact, they even say, statistics even say that email is still the most popular activity on a smartphone above social networks and posting photos and all of those things too. So email is there. And not only that, email, people have a tolerance for email. You can definitely send, and they're not, as long as you're being responsible and a good steward, like I said, but they have a tolerance for email and they appreciate that email. And so it's, a lot of times people overlook email, and that's my point is that, email drives traffic to websites. It's a great way to get information out really quickly. It's a great way to be more personable. I mean, when we develop email lists, of course, you collect their first name and last name if you want, and then you can even send the email that says like, "Hey, Marley, I hope your week is going well. Here's the best post from last week." And you can be more personal in there than you could be by posting on Facebook or Twitter or otherwise.
I've gotten some emails that say, "My name is F name."
Oh.
Dear F name.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Yeah,
I know. I always feel bad for someone when I get something like that.
The tip on there is to make sure that the merge fields you're trying to include actually exist, and then have the right fallback if they don't. But, I mean, we all make mistakes, but
I never take it. It never bothers me. I feel, like I say, I feel bad for that person when that happens.
That's too bad.
Yeah. So what about A/B testing? Do you think we should be doing A/B testing with our emails? I think like that would help us predict like times of day that we should be sending emails or different things like that.
Yeah, definitely. So, and a lot of these, and I know MailChimp does it, and I know Constant Contact as well, and there's probably others that do as well. They give you really great tools to do some of that A/B testing right there. So you're really looking at three areas, and when you're doing your A/B testing in email, you're looking at the from name on the email. So when it comes in, what's the name that shows up? Is it, Alex from PAC, or is it Alex Gates, or or something like that?
Does that cause people to open it more? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yeah. And that definitely does make a difference. So if it's something very generic, so for example, we found at PAC. Now, of course, this isn't in the food space. This is in the dog space. But we found if we would send an email and it would say the Pug Pack as the from name, it would be open less than when the from name was Anne from the Pug Pack. So when you make it personable that way, it's less of, hey, this is a robot sending me an email, and more of, hey, this is a person sending me an email. So there's definitely some testing that you can do with that, and it's not a bad idea. But like I said, the advice that I would have on the upfront of that is be more of a person and less of a robot.
Right.
So that's the from name. The other thing, and I think it's probably the biggest, is the subject line, right?
Yeah.
And so that gives you all sorts of, you can do, people are sending emoji, in their subject lines now, and you can get kind of long with subject lines. And if you read some of the statistics, and, different companies are putting out statistics all the time, but people kind of like longer, more descriptive subject lines, and something that is giving them a preview of what's happening. So here's another example with PAC. We used to say, here's your weekly best finds of pug goodies around the web, or something like that. And that was really sort of just a generic thing that was the same subject each and every week. And then as soon as we started making them unique, where we would say, your new favorite pug t-shirt and the best leash for our furry little guys, something like that, where you give it a little bit more specific context to what's going on. Mm-hmm. We saw our opens spike because of those. And so put time into that subject line, and I would definitely keep it fresh from week. Write something new with each one all the time.
So an example for food bloggers could be, just using my site as an example, I could call my subject line the March Namely Marley newsletter. That's kind of generic and maybe not so exciting. But if I said banana cream pie and other great recipes, or, that's a little more specific and has more intrigue.
Definitely.
Okay.
And you can test those. And so that's kind of cool. They give you really great ways to test those. And then, so I was talking about the three areas. And the third one would be the date and time of delivery. And so that's, you can get really sophisticated with that if you want. I know that if you have the time zone, if you happen to know the time zone where your reader is, you could actually set it up so that when you deliver at 9 a.m. to wherever they are at their 9 a.m. I mean, you can get really kind of crazy with that. And the A/B testing allows you to sort of see what makes the most sense. But a lot of times, like I said, I mean, you do run into the risk of over-engineering a lot of those things. But, I'll tell you, really Monday morning at 9 a.m. is probably going to be the worst time for you to send an email, because everyone's coming to work and they're trying to get their week figured out and wishing it was still the weekend, and they've got an overloaded inbox and they just want to get through that inbox. So, definitely pay attention, and I would say experiment with it and see where people are opening. You can kind of do that, without a real formal A/B testing system if you don't want to get into that. But, definitely explore some of those options, because they do make it really user-friendly and kind of fun to try out. Yeah. So definitely look into that.
Yeah, and I keep it with a spirit of experimentation rather than feeling like, oh, it's one more thing I've got to do.
Exactly. Yeah. So one other point with that is that the content in your email, you can also A/B test. I know that Constant Contact allows you to A/B test actual content inside an email, which can get crazy. But, like I said, just getting them to open the email and read the email is the first step. Yeah. So what I would definitely recommend, before you do a lot of that fine tuning of that content within the email, make sure that you're looking at, your click stats inside of MailChimp or wherever, and seeing which kind of links people are clicking on.
Yes.
And I would even take that further and say, obviously you're probably using Google Analytics. If you're familiar with adding UTM links and different things like that, it's a smart idea to add UTM links to anything that's coming back to your website. That way you can see, from the Google Analytics side, obviously, which is the most interesting content or the most engaging content that's in the newsletter, but then also what kind of an effect that's having when users are back to your site. So you can kind of watch a trail and say, look, if half of these people clicked on the banana cream pie recipe, and then all of a sudden they spent 30 minutes looking through all the different types of pie recipes that I have, you can kind of get an idea of what your users are into by UTMing those links. So I know things sometimes, I don't want to get too technical with that, but if you're not using those UTM links, definitely look into that with Google Analytics, because you can get a lot of information about user behavior, and that will kind of help you make informed decisions as you're putting the content and either in your newsletter or on your blog.
I love that, Alex, because that helps you get more information about the newsletter. Could you also use that same UTM link across different social media sites or wherever you're sharing that link, and then determine which has been the most effective for you? Like Facebook was better, or your newsletter is better, that kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. You can UTM all the way across. And I know that Google Analytics does a good job, of saying okay, it recognizes links coming from social sites. So it does a pretty good job of categorizing some of that for you. But you can be specific in there. So you can give it a campaign, and name your campaign, and you can say, this is the medium, so with email or social or so on and so forth. And so if you want to get sort of data scientist with some of this stuff, definitely look into those UTM links, because you can share those. Any link that that you share out can be UTM'd, and then you can really gain a lot of insight from that.
That's excellent. Any other things that you wish we would have talked about today as far as email marketing?
Let's see.
We covered a lot.
We did, and I think it was good. I mean, I would say, I guess the one other tip that I would have is don't wait until you feel like you've reached some sort of threshold with subscribers before you start sending emails. For two reasons. I think number one, when someone says, yes, I want to get on this email list, they're kind of expecting that email to come. And so if you wait months down the road and then all of a sudden they get this email, they're like, wait, what's this thing? So
who's definitely,
this person? Yeah. So make sure you're sending it, right away. So even if you have just a small number of people on your email list, the cool thing is that other people on the list don't know that there may be one of 5 or one of 10 on the list. And so use that as an opportunity to sort of work out your workflow, start building your voice and experimenting with some of that stuff. And so that would be the other tip that I would say is, definitely don't wait until don't say like, oh, well, I need at least 100 people before I can start sending these emails. No, forget it. If you have one person on your list, send them a nice, weekly roundup email, because they won't know the difference either way. And plus it'll give you the experience, and the practice, to help, really make that a polished workflow for you.
Yeah, the more you do things, the better you get at it. So it's a great opportunity to get started right away.
Absolutely.
That's great. Okay, well, Alex, here we are at the end of the interview, and I just have a couple of quick questions I want to run by you. Okay, so what's the one food item you can't live without?
I would say, summertime grilling is is where it is for me. Oh, I love to be outside and having a beer and grilling outside. I think if I didn't have that, I don't know what I would do.
That's great. It's kind of, like you say, there's something about being outside and enjoying the weather. That's really wonderful. We've been watching this series on Netflix called Chef's Table, and they've actually been doing where they have a pit and they bury the food that they're grilling. Like, of course I was intrigued by the sweet potatoes, but they had other things you were grilling as well. Sure. And they just bury it, and it's pretty bizarre.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah. So, okay, great. How about what's your favorite app on your phone?
That's a good question. So, lately, I've been using, I've been trying to use it more, is an app called Day One. And what that is, it's a journaling. So you can keep like a journal. And so I find that a lot of times, I have memories or different things that I want to remember that I don't necessarily want to share out on a social. I don't really care if my old high school friends, will see it. And so I've been trying to do a better job of doing more of that journaling, because I think it helps you reflect on your day and sort of process things. And then it's really fun to go through and read some of those things. And, when you're doing that, you can be more candid in what you're writing, and really, it's good, I think, for the soul to write. And so I would say definitely check out Day One.
I love that.
It's beautifully designed. It's a great team behind it, and it's just a really nice way. You can add photos to it, and then it'll do cool things like if I'm writing a journal entry or something, it'll say, the current temperature is 65 outside and it's a little rainy, and then it'll grab some of that extra data in there, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Day One is, I added it to my dock on my phone because I thought that would really help me use it more often, and then so I found that I've been adding photos to it or just making little small updates here and there, and I really enjoy it.
That's really cool, Alex, because I think sometimes we wonder, like, why did I make this decision, or what was going on? And you forget about these kind of things that were going on that impacted you in a big way. They're kind of an undercurrent, and you don't pay attention to them sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Okay, do you have any time for TV at all? And if so, what's your favorite show?
So we have very little time for TV. I have 4 children, and I've got a full-time job, and so we're busy. But we've been watching Bob's Burgers. We missed out on it in the beginning, and so we've been following up. So we've been binge watching Bob's Burgers every night. I don't even know
what that is. What is that?
Oh, it's hilarious. It's an animated show. I think it was a Fox show, maybe. I'm pretty sure it was Fox.
They have the best animated show, like The Simpsons. And
it's really good. I mean, at first, it's one of those shows that you need to get into the character development, but then once you sort of start learning about these characters, it's really funny. So yeah, definitely Bob's Burgers has been my definitely go-to for the evenings when we do have a few minutes to watch a show or two at night.
Excellent. I cannot wait to check that out. Okay, so outside of work, blogging, and whatever else, do you have any other favorite hobbies that you do?
Yeah, I'm involved a lot in the school PTA, and I'm a big proponent of public schools. And I like the idea of trying to bring in parents in the neighborhood and the community to support a public school. And so my wife Jamie and I both do a lot of work with the PTA, and I'm really interested in writing software to help parent groups coordinate and communicate better and raise money, different things like that. I mean, there's so many fundraising companies that want you to go out and sell different things and different stuff like that. And what I found is people really just kind of want to make direct gifts to a school, and they want to volunteer, and they want to spend time at the school. And so, yeah, I'm really into the public school stuff and PTA things.
Alex, that is brilliant, because let me tell you how many times it's like, I don't really want to buy this candle, but I would give $10, but there wasn't a process for that,
Exactly. And when you spend $10 on that candle, maybe 4 of it will actually
yes. And then that candle is going to be, one more thing that goes to Goodwill eventually or something. And it's like, I would rather just give the $10 to the school, but it didn't seem like there was a way to do that.
Yeah.
So I love that. I'm so glad to hear. I want to learn more about what you're doing down the road then.
Great.
Excellent. Yeah. So Alex, how can people find you online?
I have a blog at alexpgates.com. And I sometimes post a lot of different sort of code or, web development type things. But I do a lot of fun things with technology as well. And so I do blog occasionally at alexpgates.com. I'm also on Twitter at alexpgates.
Okay.
And so you can find me on there, and that's an easy way. And so, yeah, I mean, if I encourage people to reach out, ask questions, or if there's anything I can help with, definitely let me know.
Alex, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I had a great time.
Thanks so much for the opportunity, Marley. It was great.
Thanks to Alex P. Gates for being my guest on today's episode of the Chopped Podcast. If you were out and about and couldn't jot down that important note, don't worry, we've got you covered. Just head over to choppedcon.com, where I put up links for each show, including the stuff we talked about today and more information about our guests. I hope you're loving the Chopped Podcast. If so, it would mean the world to me if you'd head over to iTunes and give it a review. You can do that right now. Also, you can spread the word about the Chopped Podcast using @ChoppedCon on Twitter or Instagram, or even Facebook. Your shout-outs really mean a lot, and we read every one. You inspire me, so I hope today's show is helpful and inspirational to you as well. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great week.